The old airfield on the outskirts of Arizona was silent that morning, except for the soft hum of cicadas and the distant cry of a hawk. In the middle of the wide, cracked runway stood Alexandra Vega, 62 years old, her silver hair tied in a neat braid that reached the collar of her leather jacket. Her eyes, however, steel gray, sharp, and restless, had not aged a day. For the last 7 years, she had lived in semi-retirement, teaching young pilots basic maneuvers at the local flying club. Most people in town knew her simply as Ms. Vega, the flight instructor. Very few knew the truth, that she had once been one of the FBI's most skilled pilots, flying covert missions, intercepting drug planes, and extracting agents from hostile territory. Alexandra had buried that part of her life, or at least she thought she had. Her days were simple. Mornings began with black coffee and a jog along the dusty trail behind her ranch house. By noon, she was at the hangar, guiding nervous students through takeoff checklists and teaching them how to keep their composure in turbulence. In the evenings, she would sit on her porch with a book, listening to the desert winds, but the calm was fragile. Sometimes when a plane roared overhead, she would close her eyes and feel the old adrenaline, the echo of her past life, flooding her veins. She always forced it down, telling herself she had earned the right to peace, until that morning. As she was checking the fuel levels on a Cessna 172, a black SUV rolled slowly onto the airfield. Its tinted windows reflected the sun, masking the occupants. Alexandra frowned. She had seen enough government vehicles in her time to recognize one, and she knew, deep in her gut, that this was not a casual visit. The driver stepped out first, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that looked suffocating in the desert heat. He opened the back door, and a second man emerged. Agent Collins, FBI, he introduced himself, flashing a badge. His voice was calm, but his eyes studied her with the precision of a hawk. "We need a word." Alexandra stiffened. "I'm retired." "Whatever you want. You're wasting your time." Collins exchanged a glance with his partner, then leaned closer. "It's about Flight Sierra 47. Disappeared over Nevada airspace. We believe it's connected to a domestic terror cell." Her heart skipped a beat. Sierra 47. She knew that designation. A federal aircraft, modified for surveillance and difficult to track. Collins continued. "We have reason to believe you're the only pilot who can help us find it." Alexandra let out a bitter laugh. "I hung up my wings years ago. I don't work for the Bureau anymore, and I don't chase ghosts in the desert." But Collins was prepared. From a leather folder, he pulled out a photograph. Her chest tightened when she saw it. The picture showed Elena Ramirez, a young agent Alexandra had mentored during her final years of service. Elena was sharp, brave, and stubborn to a fault. She was on that flight, Collins said, missing, possibly alive. The desert heat suddenly felt colder. Memories flooded back. Elena's nervous smile in the cockpit, her endless questions about aerial maneuvers, the way Alexandra had told her, "One day you'll be better than me." "Why me?" Alexandra asked quietly. "Because you know these skies," Collins replied. "Because you trained Ramirez, and because," he paused, "a cell we're tracking isn't just random extremists. They knew how to jam radar. Someone taught them. Someone who once worked in federal aviation." Alexandra's blood froze. It meant this wasn't just about a missing plane. It was about betrayal from within. That night, Alexandra sat in her small living room, the photo of Elena resting on the table beside a glass of untouched whiskey. She stared at it for hours, torn between the weight of her past and the silence of her present. She had walked away from the Bureau because she was tired of loss, tired of watching friends vanish into hostile skies. But Elena wasn't just another name. She was family. At midnight, Alexandra stood, her decision made. She pulled a heavy case from the back of her closet and set it on the bed. Inside lay her old flight gear, headset, maps annotated with her handwriting, a compass worn from years of use. At the bottom was her sidearm, polished but unused for nearly a decade. "Damn it, Elena," she muttered, strapping on the holster. "I swore I'd never do this again." 2 days later, she found herself in a secure hangar at Nellis Air Force Base. Collins handed her a dossier. The missing Sierra 47 had vanished without a distress call, last seen over a desolate stretch of Nevada desert. Satellite scans revealed faint heat signatures, possibly wreckage, possibly a decoy. "The group calls themselves the Horizon Faction," Collins explained. "Ex-military, radicalized, well-funded. They've been trying to acquire aviation tech for months. They've got Sierra 47. They could retrofit it into a mobile command center." Alexandra flipped through the pages, her eyes narrowing. Maps, encrypted radio transcripts, blurry drone images of armed camps hidden in canyons. "And you expect me to just fly over and hope they don't shoot me down?" Collins smirked faintly. "Not just you. You'll have support." The hangar doors opened. Inside was a sleek jet, an upgraded Gulfstream Interceptor, its wings gleaming under fluorescent light. Modified for speed and stealth. Alexandra's throat tightened. She hadn't felt this mix of dread and exhilaration in years. At dawn, Alexandra climbed into the cockpit. The smell of fuel, leather, and metal hit her senses like an old friend. Her fingers slid across the controls with instinctive precision. "Tower, this is Delta 9 requesting clearance," she said into the mic. Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. As the engines roared and the plane surged forward, she felt the ground fall away beneath her. The desert stretched out below, endless and unforgiving. The sky welcomed her back like a long-lost lover. For a moment, she almost smiled, but then she remembered this wasn't a joyride. This was life or death somewhere out there. Elena was waiting somewhere out there. The Horizon faction was preparing for something bigger, and Alexandra Vega, the retired FBI pilot who had sworn never to return, was flying straight into the storm once more. The sun had barely broken over the jagged peaks of Nevada when Alexandra Vega adjusted her headset. The desert below was a mosaic of shadows and light, but in her mind, all she could see were he-stakes. Elena Ramirez, trained, smart, and fearless, was out there somewhere, possibly injured, possibly trapped. Her co-pilot, Lieutenant Marcos Santos, a former Air Force navigator, checked the instruments beside her. Heat signatures in Sector 7 are faint but consistent, he said, pointing to the digital map projected on the cockpit screen. Could be Sierra 47, could be a decoy. Alexandra's eyes narrowed. Either way, we're closing in. Let's keep it tight. They'll be expecting a conventional approach. Flying low and fast, they maneuvered through narrow canyons, using the natural contours of the land for cover. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of returning to the work she had left behind years ago. Every instinct honed over decades, the split-second decision-making, the spatial awareness, the anticipation of enemy movements was alive again. Satellite intel was right, Alexandra muttered. They're hiding the plane in a canyon fortress. Look at the pattern of those vehicles. Organized, defensive, professional. Santos nodded. We've got visual, but there's heavy ground surveillance. One wrong move, Alexandra interrupted. No mistakes. We're going in smart, not loud. As they approached the canyon, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted from the cliffside. Alexandra banked sharply, dodging the bullets. Her fingers danced across the controls with precision. Who are these people? Santos yelled over the comms. They're e-military, highly trained, Alexandra responded. And they underestimated us. Big mistake. A sudden drone appeared, hovering in their path, scanning for heat signatures. Alexandra smirked. Time to remind them why I was the best pilot they ever feared. With deft maneuvering, she flew the Gulf Stream interceptor under the drone's radar sweep, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon. Her mind was calm, but every muscle alert. Once hidden, Alexandra coordinated with a ground team that had covertly followed the Horizon faction for weeks. They had positioned themselves at key entry points, ready to neutralize threats and secure Elena. This is it, she whispered. Elena's alive. We find her first, neutralize the perimeter second. The canyon was treacherous, filled with steep drops, jagged rocks, and improvised traps. But Alexandra moved with purpose, using her military training to predict the layout and anticipate danger. She signaled the ground team through encrypted comms. Team Alpha, move to Sector 3. Avoid open spaces. Checkpoints are likely rigged. Team Bravo, flank from the north. Wait for my mark. After minutes that stretched into eternity, Alexandra spotted movement, a familiar silhouette struggling against restraints. Elena, she whispered. The young agent turned, eyes wide, recognizing her mentor. Relief flooded her expression. Alex, I knew you'd come. Of course I did, Alexandra replied. You taught me patience. Now stay still and follow my lead. They navigated carefully through the canyon, avoiding sentries and improvised alarms. Elena marveled at Alexandra's calm efficiency. How are you still this good? She asked. Alexandra allowed herself a faint smile. Never retired in mind, only in title. Suddenly, from a ridge above, multiple figures emerged, armed, alert, and ready. It was an ambush. Alexandra assessed the situation instantly. Drop to the canyon floor. Stay low. Trust me. Using the natural contours, she guided Elena and the team through narrow passages, neutralizing threats silently and efficiently. Her experience, the countless hours flying high-stakes missions, every split-second decision, all came together. A small flashbang was thrown to distract the enemies, and Alexandra executed a perfect maneuver to lead them away. By the time the Horizon faction realized what was happening, their defensive line was compromised. Finally, they reached Sierra 47, battered but intact. Elena scrambled in, checking the systems. She's still operational, she said. Alexandra turned to the ground team. Extraction point 5 minutes. Everyone move fast. As they prepared for takeoff, a final shot rang out. Alexandra's reflexes kicked in, diving the plane under a ledge, narrowly avoiding disaster. Her hands gripped the controls. The interceptor's engine roared as they ascended toward the sky. Above the canyon, they finally allowed themselves to breathe. Elena, exhausted but safe, looked at Alexandra. You saved me. Alexandra shook her head. We saved each other. The interceptor soared above the canyon, the rising sun glinting off its polished surface. Alexandra Vega tightened her grip on the controls, scanning the horizon for the next threat. Elena Ramirez sat beside her, still catching her breath, the weight of the recent ambush settling in. We're not out of this yet, Alexandra said, eyes sharp. The Horizon faction always has a backup plan. They won't give up so easily. Lena nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. Then let's make sure we're ready when they strike again. Tracing the faction back at the command center, encrypted signals indicated that the Horizon faction was regrouping. Alexandra tapped into the satellite feed, her mind moving faster than the technology she commanded. They've split into 2 cells, she said, pointing to the map. One's reinforcing their defenses, the other is relocating hostages. We need to hit the moving target before they vanish completely. Santos leaned over. This is risky. They're trained to disappear, and their comms are scrambled. Alexandra's lips curved into a confident smirk. Good. That's why I'm still the best at what I do. Trust me. Infiltration infiltration using stealth protocols. Alexandra piloted the interceptor low over the desert, masking their thermal signature. The canyon's narrow passages provided natural cover, but the slightest miscalculation could expose them. Visual confirmed, Elena whispered, pointing to a hidden facility. Guards patrolled in calculated patterns, unaware of the airborne predator above. All right, team, Alexandra said into her headset. We breach in synchronized intervals. Stay silent, stay sharp. With military precision, the extraction team deployed, guided by Alexandra's real-time instructions from above. Every move was calculated, each step minimizing exposure and maximizing effectiveness. The confrontation inside the compound, the team encountered resistance. Armed men moved swiftly, attempting to intercept them, but Alexandra's tactics, honed over decades of high-risk operations, gave them the edge. Elena, inspired by her mentor, navigated through the hallways, disabling security systems and guiding hostages to safety. Remember, Alexandra's voice crackled through the comms. Every action has a consequence. Think 3 steps ahead. As they neared the main control room, the leader of the Horizon faction appeared, a tall, imposing figure with sharp eyes and a cruel smile. Vega, he sneered. I wondered when you'd show up. Alexandra didn't flinch. I'm not here for you. I'm here for them. The confrontation escalated into a tense standoff. Alexandra used her knowledge of tactics and psychology to outmaneuver the leader, predicting his moves and countering them with precision. Elena watched in awe as her mentor dismantled the opposition with strategic genius rather than brute force. Now, Alexandra commanded. The hostages moved under cover, security neutralized, and the leader found himself trapped in his own scheme. With the hostages secured, Alexandra coordinated the extraction. The interceptor returned to the compound, landing smoothly on the makeshift helipad. Each person climbed aboard, exhausted but alive. Elena hugged Alexandra tightly. I owe you my life. Alexandra shook her head, eyes scanning the horizon. We did this together. Remember that. As the interceptor lifted off, the desert below stretched endlessly, a reminder of the dangers they had overcome and the lives they had saved. The interceptor cruised above the city skyline, the nightly streets reflecting off the aircraft's sleek frame. Alexandra Vega's eyes scanned the horizon through infrared lenses, searching for anomalies. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. Elena, Alexandra said, voice calm but firm. The Horizon faction isn't finished. They've got a major operation underway downtown. We need to intercept before it's too late. Lena nodded, her training kicking in. Understood, boss. Let's move. Back at the intelligence hub, encrypted communications revealed the scope of the faction's scheme. A coordinated attack targeting multiple high-profile buildings. Alexandra analyzed the patterns, her mind processing variables at lightning speed. They're aiming for chaos, but they've underestimated the precision of our response, she muttered. Santos, monitoring drone feeds, added they've planted explosives and have hostages at key locations. Timing is everything. Alexandra leaned over the console. Then we control the timing. Split into teams. We neutralize threats sequentially and evacuate civilians. Precision saves lives. The interceptor hovered above the first target, a financial tower in the heart of the city. Alexandra guided Elena and the tactical squad via real-time comms. Rooftop entry, fast rope descent, Alexandra instructed. Avoid engagement until I give the signal. Our priority is the hostages. Elena led the descent flawlessly, neutralizing guards with swift, non-lethal moves. The hostages, terrified, were guided to safety one floor at a time. Meanwhile, Alexandra coordinated the airspace, ensuring no enemy reinforcements could intervene. Every maneuver, every calculation was orchestrated with military precision. The faction leader, finally, they confronted the mastermind behind the operation, a cunning strategist with a reputation for ruthlessness. Vega, he sneered. I expected more from the FBI's top pilot. Are you ready to fail? Alexandra didn't flinch. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to protect lives. The standoff escalated into a battle of wits. The leader attempted to manipulate the environment, triggering distractions and traps. But Alexandra anticipated each move, countering with strategy rather than brute force. Elena watched, learning from her mentor's every decision. Adapt, anticipate, and protect. Alexandra's philosophy resonated in her every command. Turning the tide with the leader temporarily cornered, Alexandra signaled the squad. Simultaneous actions, explosives disarmed, hostages secured, and escape routes cleared. Phase 1 complete, Alexandra confirmed. Move to the next location. The city streets became a chessboard. Alexandra, the Grandmaster. Each piece moved exactly where it needed to be, neutralizing threats and saving lives in perfect synchronization. As the team reached the final target, a high-security skyscraper, the leader made his last move, escaping to the rooftop with a hostage. Elena, cover me, Alexandra shouted. The interceptor descended rapidly, engines roaring. The final confrontation was imminent, and the tension stretched to its breaking point. The fate of dozens of innocent lives now rested on Alexandra's skill, experience, and split-second decisions. The rooftop was a jagged battlefield of steel and concrete under the moonlight. Alexandra Vega's heart pounded, but her mind was razor-sharp. Below, the city lights twinkled, oblivious to the imminent danger. Elena, positions, Alexandra commanded. Her voice carried authority honed by years in the FBI FBI and countless missions. The faction leader smirked, dragging the hostage toward the edge. "You'll never stop me," he hissed. Alexandra assessed the situation in seconds. Wind, direction, distance, rooftop hazards, the leader's grip on the hostage. Every variable mattered. With a rapid series of movements, Alexandra and Elena split. Elena created a diversion, drawing the leader's attention while Alexandra advanced stealthily from behind. "Now," she whispered into her mic. A perfectly timed maneuver, a grab, a push, and a twist. The leader stumbled, momentarily off balance. Alexandra lunged, using a trained restraint technique to disarm him while keeping the hostage safe. The hostage collapsed into safety. Alexandra's heart raced, but she didn't falter. Every motion was precise. Every decision, life-saving backup teams arrived moments later, securing the rooftop and detaining the remaining faction members. Alexandra and Elena guided the hostages down to safety. Where paramedics were waiting, Santos contacted her via comms. "Alex, the city owes you big time. You've neutralized the threat completely." Alexandra allowed herself a small exhale. "We did it together. That's what counts." Later, in a quiet office at the FBI field headquarters, Alexandra removed her flight jacket. The adrenaline of the mission faded, replaced by calm satisfaction. "I never wanted the spotlight," she admitted to Elena, who had become her trusted protege. "I just want to protect people. That's why I trained, why I endured, and why I stayed ready." Elena smiled. "And you've shown the world what true courage looks like. Quiet, precise, and unstoppable." Alexandra nodded, looking out at the city skyline. "Sometimes the world only notices after the chaos, but that's okay. The important part is always being ready, even when nobody sees." News outlets hailed Alexandra Vega as a hero, the retired FBI pilot whose skill, courage, and calm under pressure saved dozens of lives. Yet she returned to her quiet life, not for recognition, but because duty and protection were intrinsic to who she was. Her story became inspiration, that true heroes don't always wear capes, and that extraordinary courage often hides in the most ordinary places.